Don't do it. Okay, so we need to... I think this is kill the ancients. And then this one is kill Baal. We're going to level up first. So we're going to go and clear Ancient's Way a little bit. And then we'll... Once we have revives, we'll get a revive and then go over there and fight the Ancients. I think Revive will just replace Skeletal Mages, because Skeletal Mages are garbage. They're not entirely a waste of space, but they're very close to it. Because, like, just to check that out, those guys 2 or 3 shot that thing. Whereas the mages would be sitting there pounding on them for forever. Now those are actually the dudes that we want to get revives for. They are so dangerous, comparatively. Oh hey, Skill Shrine. Fantastic. Still only get 10 skeletons. But I guess we'll get super skeletons. 2, 3, 4, 5. Six, 7, 8, 9, 10. I guess we'll get some skeletal mages. We're gonna have 3 of them now. Hey, fantastic. Get our first revives. Alright, so we're gonna replace skeletal mages with revives. Revives are really, really great. What? Actually, we're gonna replace the golem. So we're gonna put revive. Oh. We need that on 3. Skeleton, revive, golem, mage. You can still have mages, they're just not very useful. So revives. You get 1 extra revive per level. Right now, we have the skill shrine, so we could get a bunch of them. But there that goes. Yeah, we'll always be able to have 2 of them. So what we want to do is we're going to find some Moon Lords. And they don't last very long, they only last for 180 seconds. If you get too far away from them, they do move pretty slowly. They are monsters after all. So they will just essentially despawn and die. But okay. Ancient's Way. So let's get... We'll get our mages. Actually, we'll probably just skip that and get revives. Depending on how many corpses we have access to. Yeah, we should be fine. Okay. And now let's give ourselves... We should be fine in terms of potions. Alright. Let's go, my dudes. Going to go take down the ancients.
The resting place of...
We are the spirit.
And it's amazing how fast these guys go down when you're appropriately leveled. And he's just standing there fighting, so that's probably the easiest Ancients fights I've ever had. Okay, so what level are we now? Level 31? Not bad. Okay, so we want to start boosting Skeleton Mastery.
Impossible.
Okay, cool. I figured that would be harder than it was. Turns out it's just super easy when you're appropriately leveled. Okay, so these ladies make better revives than those guys, because these are very fast and they have a curse they can put on enemies. Okay, so hopefully we can find the way forward pretty quickly. We've defeated the Ancients most of the way through Act 5. Bale will probably be the biggest roadblock for us. Because Bale is kind of designed to not hard counter you, but he can very quickly and easily do a ton of damage. Did we find it? Yes. Okay. This is where the waypoint is. We want to grab this waypoint if we can. If we find it, we'll grab it. If we don't, it's single player, so there's no point to grab it unless you intend to come back here. These guys are kind of funny to revive. They just kind of run in and explode. Oh, you can't revive them. Okay. I figured that would be funny. They just run in and corpse explosion themselves. Hey, have you ever seen corpse explosion before? Oh. Well, one thing's for sure, they'll be able to keep up with you. That's the nice part. But now we are at the slow process of leveling Skeleton Mastery. And using Corpse Explosion to just clear entire swaths of enemies. Which is fun. That is what it's kind of there for. More so on higher difficulties. Only downside is you need to actually kill the enemy. So we're gonna go grab some more healing potions. I mean, more mana potions. So we're gonna get rid of this. I don't feel like going to Deckard, so... hold shift, right click. Excellent. Okay, excellent. Let's grab that. And let's start giving ourselves super skeletons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Super mages. 1, 2, 3. Oh wait, we'll be able to get super revives down here. Yep. Okay. Oh, okay, there's a level 4. Okay, sounds good. So again, just pick an edge of the map and follow it, and you will get where you need to go. We're gonna revive these Death Lords for sure. Any enemy that runs directly at any enemy that runs directly at our enemies is what we want. If they do a lot of damage, it's even better. Okay, so we're hollowing this, so we'll go that way. May or may not be the way we're supposed to go. Doesn't matter. Okay, how did he get in here? Aren't you supposed to need to defeat the Ancients to be able to gain... Oh wait, that's right. There's an item that you can use that Bale stole that makes it so you don't have to fight the Ancients. But I mean, Bale would probably be able to defeat the Ancients no problem. Alright, go on guys. Do your things. What's kind of funny is, as long as you just move a little bit, these mages will almost never hit you. So, that's something. Yeah, try thinking about the revives as just a bonus minion. Okay, so we're gonna come over here next and go around. Yeah, so some of these guys are better than others as revives. Ideally, you'd get something that is hyper-aggressive, chases the enemy around, and attacks them all the time. Doesn't spend a lot of time running away. Those are the good ones. So you wouldn't want Fallen as... you wouldn't want to revive a Fallen. You wouldn't want to revive a Fallen Shaman. They don't revive Shaman. They don't revive Fallen to fight for you. Fallen Shaman sort of spend a lot of time wandering around, not attacking. Fallen in general, once they see any enemy die, or anything die, really, they run away. Makes them not particularly useful. Is this red down here? Yes. So we saw the way forward. We just didn't realize it. Alright, the Throne of Destruction. Now the Necromancer's real mana sink comes in. Well, revives. So we used to think that when you triggered the battle up here, that all the other minions in the area would flood in and attack you. They don't do that. Bale does get rid of all the corpses though. So it's a good idea to clear out all the... It's a good idea to get all the revives and skeletons you need for a wave. Yeah, as you can see, there's no more corpses. Well, there are some out there. Could be wrong. Yeah, can't get that one. It's also a great place to farm cool items. Yeah, this is going a lot better than I thought, than I remember. Now, these guys we definitely want to revive. Yeah, those council members. Because they can summon Hydras. Super useful. Mana. I think if they're in melee, they won't necessarily summon Hydras. Anyway. Let's get those guys. Kill this last Venom Lord. And now we're going to see a Bale's special enemies that only show up here. You cannot revive these ones as far as I remember, but you can corpse explode them. At least I don't think you can revive them. Nice. Yeah, can't revive anything. Nothing there either. Jump into that. And let's go after Bale.
So this is what the ancients guard.
So he has a push ability. It's a big wave of hold. That he also has teleport. He also does an outrageous and huge amount of damage. And he also has a duplicate spell. And yes, he can spam those. Since we start running out of skeletons, we need to teleport away. Yeah, we're getting pretty low. So it's time to leave.
Hello.
If you kill his duplicate, nothing happens. He doesn't, like, split his health with it, I don't think.
The ancients have afternoon.
So it's kind of a waste. A lot of newer games, what they'll do instead is they'll have the enemy like split his health pool with whatever clone he makes of himself, so that even if you do kill the clone, it still does damage, quote unquote. Alright, so we need to kill Bale, but we also need some more minions, so let's go to the Cold Blade and kill some poor fallen. Hello. These cost 29 now, huh? Nice. Alright, well those skeletal mages will not last very long, but whatever, doesn't matter. Let's go to Ancient's Way, I suppose, but we've kind of cleared out the entire area. That is kind of the problem with single player, I guess. Oh hey, some moonlords. Okay, that's one of two. I want to get some extras. Eventually you'd want like 10 revives following you around. Yeah, it's... Okay, cool. This is like, are we going to destroy his corpse by accident? Right, to Horogoth. And then in we go. I'm guessing we've been attacking the clone, which makes perfect sense. Is kind of how that usually goes. So yeah, we want the golem because the golem can slow him. That is his version of Diablo's Hellfire Wave or whatever he does. And we'll get this open just in case. We need to buy more Scrolls of Town Portal. He hits the golem for so much. Every time he swipes at the golem, he pretty much is guaranteed to hit. But he's gonna go down relatively soon. I hope. If you have more mana than you do health, he'll put a curse on you that makes it so that you have to use health to cast spells instead. Excellent.
I am overburdened. Never doubt my skills.
And there we go. That is the World Stone over there.
I am impressed, Muir. You have overcome the greatest challenge this world has ever faced and defeated the last of the primevals.
Slate open. Okay, so what you didn't see there. Let's just look through these Sisters Lament. This is the very beginning introductory cutscene. Okay, these just don't play. Alright, sounds good. Well, in that case, let's see if we can find it for you. Well, there are the resurrected ones. I haven't seen those before. So, let's check that out, I guess.
So, Marius, at last I find you.
Tyrael, yes. Yes, now I recognize you. I should have known you'd travel in disguise. They're always watching.
I've been searching for you for a long time, Marius. I was rather beginning to think you didn't want to be found.
Oh, forgive me, Tyrael, please. It wasn't my fault.
Not your fault. Tell me, Marius, how was it not your fault?
The Wanderer. Yes, it was the Wanderer. My days at the Rogue Citadel seemed so long ago. I sought refuge from my memories in the company of other outcasts, high in the mountains past the Eastern Gate.
Do you want something?
Oh, I fought sleep for days at a time. For when I dreamt, the memories would return. Memories of the monastery and the evil which had claimed it. Dreams, memories. I couldn't tell the difference anymore. Had the evil from my dreams followed me at my heels? How had he found me here? How could this broken shell of a man, barely able to carry the weight of his own sword, be the burning terror which drove me to hide here? He seemed to have demons of his own. He struggled to contain. And he was losing. As I watched, I became convinced that I was truly mad. The terror, the destruction, the evil I witnessed. How else could I explain them? Were these the demons from my dream, or were they born within the Wanderer? Why did I follow him? I don't know. Why do things happen as they do in dreams? All I know is that when he beckoned, I had to follow him. And from that moment, we traveled together east. Always into the east.
Remember back in the day? I mean, on the original cutscenes, like that was like so cool back in the day. Coming off of Diablo 1 and going to Diablo 2, all of that stuff was just friggin' amazing.
We traveled east, over the mountains and into the vast deserts of broken lands. As the days passed, my companion told me of himself, that he had once been a great warrior, and that a dark and secret burden now weighed heavily upon him. We traveled for an eternity across that arid wasteland. How long? I couldn't say. And always, a dark cloud seemed to follow us just over the horizon. Finally, the journey ended. We climbed the last bridge. There below us lay our destination. The shining jewel, Loot Lane, with a great sea beyond. We made camp that last night. Perhaps it was the warm desert wind or the sound of the ocean, but for the first time in many weeks, I slept. However, the dreams returned, but these were clearly not my own. I beheld a vision of a great man, the mage, Talrasha. You were there too, Tyrael. I remember seeing you in my dream. His brethren had cornered a great demon, Baal, Lord of Destruction, who had been set loose upon the world. They attempted to imprison the demon within a sacred stone. Yet when their attempts failed, Talrasha selflessly volunteered to contain the demon within himself, completing the prison. He instructed his brethren to bind him within a tomb, buried under the sand, there to wrestle with the demon for all eternity.
Now you know what I seek, Marius. This is my brother. Sleep now. We set out with the dawn.
The next morning, we walked over the hill toward Loot Lane. I had no idea then of the horrors that were in store for me there.
Looking at Luke Lane, it doesn't really look like a complete city to me. So it has the elements that look like a city-state, but it doesn't, like from the outside it looks like one, but here's the thing. So fortresses in warfare have sort of designed and dictated how you would design a city-state, how you would design a city. So there's always three elements of a major city, and that is, or we'll say a fortress city if you like. Most capitals were fortress cities. So you would have the town wall, which was like your first line of defense, this would usually get taken pretty quickly. You would try to defend it as long as you could, but when it became clear the walls were getting overrun, you would abandon those outer walls, which are extremely difficult to defend, require usually more people than you have garrisoned in a town, and you would fall back to what's called the citadel, which is an inner wall, which is just all around, say, a castle. If there is a castle in there, it would be called a keep, but you would have the citadel, which is the extremely fortified military center of the entire town. And so within that, you would have a keep, which is essentially just designed to help you shoot down at the walls to help defend them, but also to basically just be absolute death to try and take. In many sieges, the enemies would take the besiegers would take the city walls. They might even take the keep wall. They might even take the citadel walls, but then they just starve out the keep because you might take, I don't know, 2-to-1 losses, 5-to-1. You might take. We'll be extremely generous just to push the idea. You might take 1-to-1 losses taking the city walls. Unrealistic, but maybe. The keep, the citadel, you're going to take maybe like 5 to 10-to-1 losses taking the citadel walls. But the keep, you're looking at probably 20 to 50-to-1. Every defender you take out, you're going to lose 20 to 50 people, because keeps are designed with lots of just harsh angles and just murder boxes the entire way around. A murder box is just something where you can also call it a kill box, just like in like RimWorld or any of those games where, in essence, all the defenders can attack you, but you can barely attack them. There is this concept known as an arrow slit, for example. An arrow slit, you can think about it like a glass, right? But I want you to imagine that there's no hole in here, and I can shoot out of the glass, and that gives me a nice range to shoot out of. But you shooting me is much more difficult. But imagine the glass is a little bit. Imagine that the glass is instead like this, where I'm on this side, you're on that side. And I have basically all this cover to shoot my bow or my crossbow through, or, stab through with my spear. And I have this nice wide angle at which to get at people. But they have this tiny little slit that they have to try and stab through to attack me. So attacking a keep was insane. You didn't want to do it. It would just get everybody killed. So they would usually just starve them out. But here's the other thing. Okay, so you take the city walls. That's great. You have a new problem. And that problem is you just took the city walls from the military. Now you have all the citizenry who live inside the city walls. These are artisans, all the criminals, just the common folk who live there. The nobility have probably either fled or they're in the citadel by this point. Or they're non-combatants and they have no interest in fighting you, but usually nobility and aristocracy, the aristocrats, were part of the military, so they'd be inside the keep at this point. So now you'd have another problem, and that is the citizenry. Half of them are probably going to fight you. The other half are probably going to want to try and get away from you. What this translates to is you have huge swaths of people trying to leave, huge swaths of people fighting you in guerrilla warfare tactics, and you also have people from some of the military from the Citadel sallying out to attack you. And you don't know who's who. Now the problem is, if you start killing the people who are trying to run away, well, they turn into people who are going to fight you. And once the citizenry becomes convinced that you're just going to kill them all, they are going to all fight you at this point. At which point, the people you're fighting just went from a military that is very concentrated to potentially increasing its numbers by like 10 times and just adding a lot of really crappy fighters to this, but you're outnumbered 10 to 1. But I mean, the people you're fighting just multiplied by like just multiplied by 10. So if there were, say, 20,000 defenders, now you're fighting 200,000 people maybe. And your military is not ready for that. Usually you don't want to fight the citizens at the same time. But anyway, Luke Ghislaine doesn't have a citadel. It has a palace, but the palace doesn't look like it's a combat palace. So what I suspect would be, once Luke Ghislaine's walls get breached, the entire city would fall like that. Almost. There's the whole thing of, well, there's the underground under the palace, and that's nice, but there's a problem with the underground, which is, if you have to go underground, getting supplies underground takes a lot more time. It's harder to do. You're kind of just stuck in there. And there's also a different problem, which most people don't think about, which is air. When you have something that's underground, you need either an egress point for all the carbon dioxide, which is heavier than air, heavier than oxygen, or the bottom levels of the palace's dungeons are going to start filling up with literally air you can't breathe. So that means there would have to be some sort of tunnel or egress point that carbon dioxide can get out of, which means now the opposing army could use that to get in and attack you from the other side. But, you know, it's just one of those things. Once you've seen it and you understand it, it will be difficult to not see it. Which basically raises the question, why hasn't Luke Ghislaine been taken before? If you are wondering, the desert sultans in the Diablo 2 universe are primarily merchants. So they're not really going to be getting besieged. They really are just traders and merchant princes, essentially. Anyway, let's keep going.
My companion drew in the dank, cold air of the tomb. It seemed to strengthen him. I stood in the doorway between light and dark. What was left of my sanity implored me not to enter. But that voice was just a whisper now. As we worked our way down, deeper and deeper into the crypt, I began to see a change in my companion. He seemed to be gaining strength. I could hardly see in the gloom, but my companion seemed to know the way. We came at last to a great hall. It was then I realized my companion hadn't been gaining strength. He had been losing what was left of his humanity. He moved with demonic speed, and then you appeared.
Stop! The beast contained herein shall not be set free, not even by you.
Just ensured the doom of this world. You cannot even begin to imagine what you've set in motion this day. Go to the Temple of Light in the eastern city of Karast. There you will find the gate to hell opened before you. You must find the courage to step through that gate, Maris. Take the stone you hold to the Hellforge, where it will be destroyed. Now run. Take the stone and run!
I did as you told me, Tyrael. I found the temple of the Zakarum.
Before, tell Rasha, like, why wouldn't you get rid of the bridge if he's just gonna stay there forever? Like, why wouldn't you just get rid of the bridge? That way you'd have to use some sort of magic to get to him.
In the deepest recesses of the temple, I found a dark gathering. My companion, the Wanderer, Talrasha, and a great evil who could only be the Lord of Hatred himself, Mephisto. I heard a voice that, like 1,000 needles in my heart.
My brothers, at long last we stand reunited. The infernal gate has been prepared, and the time of our final victory is at hand. Let the way to hell be opened. And the evil that was once vanquished shall rise anew. Wrapped in the guise of man, shall he walk amongst the innocent, and terror shall consume they that dwell upon the earth. The skies shall rain fire, and the seas will become as blood. The righteous shall fall before the wicked, and all creation shall tremble before the burning standards of hell.
What I saw then was not meant for mortal eyes.
The gate stands ready. Now, my young brother, the time has come to assume your true form. Arise, Diablo, Lord of Terror. You are the harbinger of our return, Diablo. Send forth your terror into hell.
heard later that he was defeated. And that the Soul Stones were destroyed in Hellforge. All except one.
Oh, I failed, Tyrael. I couldn't do as you asked. I couldn't enter that gate. Forgive me, Tyrael. Forgive me.
Marius, give me the stone, and all is forgiven. Give it to me, Marius.
Take it. Take it, take it. I'm glad this is finally over, Tyrael. Look what the stone has done to me.
You haven't failed, old man. You've done exactly as you were meant to do. However, I am not the Archangel Tyrael.
Well, no. No, 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 no.
You have done well, Marius. Now I think you shall have your reward.
What have I done to deserve it?
Whole ending of Malleus. I'm curious about his name. Because we have Eus, right? Mal means bad. Probably a Latin root. Or a Latin suffix. It's probably Eus. Oh. Hmm. Well, wait. We found Eus. So, what is that? It's just a muscle that constitutes as a form of or joins a specific part, thing, or structure. So, like gluteus. So gluteus, like gluteus maximus, aka the muscle that's in your butt. So, if his name is Malleus, Mal is bad, so he is a bad part of the story. Or he helps the bad guys win. We were running classic. We're just watching the resurrected cutscenes because I haven't seen them before. But we just finished it. So we just finished Diablo 2. So we'll probably be moving on to Diablo 3. But we're just checking out the Resurrected cutscenes right now. Oh, I see what you're asking. We are running version 1.14b. So current patch. I don't think you're going to find 1.12. You might find it on like a crack site or something. But yeah, I know that's what all the cracks and stuff and map hacks and everything work for. You might also be able to find maybe some ROMs or something like that, maybe on a torrent site or something that might be in 1.12. But you're kind of stuck looking for CDs and like copy and like ROMs of CDs. What I'd really recommend, actually, if you're playing the game again, is, and if you don't want to play on Battle.net, which is perfectly understandable, by the way, perfectly understand. Like Battle.net, Diablo 2 Classic is just filled to the brim with bots at this point, and nothing's really been done to get rid of them. So I'd recommend probably going to any number of the third-party, like, custom servers for Diablo 2. Those can work just fine. Trying to run multi-res. Yeah, I don't know. I would, what I did was with this, so what you can do is you can set it to windowed mode and then put no fixed res, hyphen no fixed res, no fixed resolution, and that'll let you run it windowed, but it's still just the same window. It's just stretched a little bit instead. But that's what I've been doing. It works pretty well. If you can see up here, like, it is actually legit stretched, but because I have to come over here to get over there. That's over here. But yeah, that's what I'd recommend. If you want the larger resolution, I don't know what to tell you. If you really need to, you can go with Diablo 2 Resurrected. I think that includes Lord Destruction. I'm not sure. But yeah, I tried looking around to try and find that too, and I didn't find much. Not for 1.1b. 1.14b. Oh yeah? Oof. Yeah, I haven't checked out Diablo 2 Resurrected. Yeah. Yeah, because they didn't really make any massive improvements, as far as I understand, to Diablo 2 Resurrected mechanics. And, I mean, I'm an old person. I care more about the mechanics of the game than I do how it looks. The reskin is gorgeous, yeah. But Legacy mode, yeah. Yeah, I'd imagine that Legacy mode is just terrible. Yeah. It's just disgusting, yeah. Alright, the new cutscene with Lord of Destruction. I mean, at the same time, that was kind of the real objective, too. So when you look at Battle.net, they wanted to get rid of mods because mods gave people unfair advantages. So it kind of just is what it is. I think they tried to perfect a lot of tools that showed up in Diablo 3 and StarCraft 2 and all that good stuff. They really tried to manage what people could do and improve their anti-cheat. But yeah, it's one of those catch-22s in some ways. Like in some ways, people are. I'm of the persuasion that mods exist because some aspect of the game is either outdated or bad. I'll use X4 as an example. It's this space-based game. So there is a mini game that you can play where you can get where you can essentially unlock quests. You can get the ability to gain some sort of like various boons with various boons technologies. So when you build your own base, you can just build their stuff. Well, there's this mini game where there's like a radio signal. It's called a data leak. And in the middle well, somewhere on your HUD, you have this little like radio detector. It's like a proximity alarm, and it has, you're basically playing warm or colder with looking at it, right? So as you come to look more at it, the little sound waves will get bigger and bigger and bigger, and as you look farther away, they'll get smaller and smaller and smaller. Well, there's also something where you can rotate your ship, because it's a space game, but it has this like auto it has this auto recenter where every map has an x-axis, xy-axis, where it's the flat plane, and so the game is always going to reorient your ship to that, right? So new players will struggle because they won't realize they can turn that off and then, rotate their ship to zero in on exactly where this little data link in X4 is, so then they can fly their ship and look over in that direction. And so I always thought that just having the bar is kind of silly, like it should be a radial instead, so you can sort of zero in on it very quickly and easily. But mods are great because, again, the community fixes problems with your game. So some people just mod it into where there's waypoints on all the data links because they find that minigame irritating. When you look at Diablo 2, well, if you play through Diablo 2 normally, it actually isn't that long of a game. Like no cap. A lot of people, man, I know that's lingo now to an extent, but no cap, a lot of people spend more time trying to not play through the game normally than they do just playing through the game normally. It's like Act 2 is generally considered this nightmare, right? It's considered this hugely time-consuming act that gets in the way of doing like a normal rush, nightmare rush, hell rush, right? But if you just play through the game normally, it goes really fast. You just hull wug until you find the right places, then you go to the I don't know, the Sun Palace, whatever it's called, where the snake people are. You get the talisman, then you go get the staff, and then you go beneath the palace after you get the Project Cube, and you kill the wizard, you find out the exact sign, and then you run through one, you find that sign inside the Canyon of the Magi, you find the one temple you're supposed to go in there, then you fight Duriel, and you're on to Act 3. But like so much of D2 multiplayer is not doing any of that. Because the Arcane Sanctuary is kind of a pain in the ass. So instead, it's like, all right, let's ignore the Arcane Sanctuary, let's skip that entirely, go straight to the Canyon of the Magi, and then then fully explore each of the dungeons. Yeah, I mean, I like Act 2 as well. Playing in single player, it's great. Playing in multiplayer, I just remember how much people would try to like circumvent Act 2. But at the same time, unless you have like one person going into each of the Tal Rasha's tombs, it's hard to find out which one is the one you need to use. But the easiest way to do that is just to go into the Arcane Sanctuary, go find the mage, open the book, and then you know which one to go to. So it was always kind of interesting. But one of the main map hacks back in Diablo 2 classic days was you could just find out precisely what tomb it was. Like that. Done. You knew exactly which one it was. So yeah, there was a lot of good stuff about the map hacks. It fixed a lot of the game for people because you probably just don't want to go and do all this extra work. You want to get through you want to go from Act 1, which took almost no time if you were rushing somebody. You literally just open a portal to right in where Arian Andariel was, and then you killed Andariel. Done. Next quest. Next act. And now it's like, we gotta go and do all this other stuff in multiplayer to rush somebody through. Oh, it's a pain in the ass. And then finally they get to Tal Rasha. They kill Duriel. And then Act 3, I think you do have to get the hammer and break the seal. I think that's the only thing you have to do to get to the end of Act 3. So you break the seal and everybody who's in that area approximately is able to now get into the Durance of Hate, kill Mephisto. Then you go to Act 4, and literally you can just teleport straight to Diablo, kill Diablo. Then it's Act 5. You have to kill the Ancients to get into the World Stone Chamber. But once you've done that, and you have to be level 20 minimum, there's minimums per difficulty level that you have to be. And then you can kill Baal and get into the next difficulty. So, it was there. There was stuff, but playing through the game normally didn't take that long. And if you were playing as like a barbarian or something that just has really high burst damage, or an Amazon or something like a Boazon, we would have gotten through this probably like 3 to 4 times as fast because we just kill stuff, move, 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 kill stuff, move, 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 move. Only kill what you need to keep moving forward instead of the skeletons focusing on whatever they want. So, it is what it is. But the Necromancer is super powerful. I like Army Necros. I like minion classes, but
Baal! The gates of Sescheron have stood for eons beyond remembrance, and you shall not breach them now. Remove your foul demons from our lands. We stand on the side of light. You shall not be allowed to reach Mount Ariat, and that which you seek will not be yours.
I shall take your position into consideration. Well, it seems your terms are not acceptable.
Seems to be like jumping a little bit. Oh, it's not 60 frames per second. That's why. Yep, there we go. Full story of Diablo 2. It's cinematics. And yeah, those were nice. I haven't seen those before. I refuse to pay like an extra, what is it, $50, $40 just for slightly updated graphics and updated cinematics. Mechanics are exactly the same, as far as I understand. There's like a few things that are different, but for the most part, the Diablo 2 Resurrected is effectively just Diablo 2, I think, Lord of Destruction, but with better visuals. But yeah, it's a good game. I still recommend people check it out. The Necromancer, just quickly go through the classes. It's like the Amazon has a lot of defense and offense. She's a primary, like, ranged physical character. The Assassin has a lot of special synergies, but for the most part, you're either going to be playing her as a trap character, where there's so many places I could take that. So she throws a bunch of traps down, and those damage the enemy, or she can do martial arts, at which point you have a combo system with finisher moves. Necromancer, you can play him as an offensive caster, at which point he does magic damage, which is one of the least resisted types of magical elemental spell damage in the entire game. I think there are magic immune enemies, but I could be wrong. I think there's mostly just magic resistant enemies. So he'll always be able to deal damage with like Bone Spirit and Bone spells. So there's that. There are curses which can supplement either or, being a caster or being a summoner. And then there's being a summoner, which is really you summon a horde of skeletons who go and kill the enemy for you with your support. There's the Barbarian. You can build him to use two-handed weapons and throw two-handed axes. I don't know how well that goes. You can build him to be a two-handed sort of melee character. If I remember correctly, you can hold two-handed weapons in each hand, so you can, use two Y-handers if you want to get that fantasy. Then he has Whirlwind, which is one of the more powerful abilities in the game. After that, you have the Paladin, which is more of your defensive version of the Barbarian. He has a lot more... He's more themed as using miracles to do things. He has a lot of auras, which no one else has access to, at least his class abilities. And he has he's kind of a Gish, if that makes any sense. He's got powerful spells, he can fight in melee, and he can stay alive in melee pretty well too. So most of the time you're going to build him to either focus exclusively on combat or exclusively on spells. Auras will come into play for both of those playstyles. Again, that's just because of how RPGs work. Of how action RPGs work. You're going to focus almost exclusively on one playstyle because that's what everything synergizes to. You have the Sorceress, who uses elemental magic. So she has 3 schools of elemental magic. Whereas the Necromancer has 1 school of magic, bone and poison magic. So you can go poison, you can go bone. You'll most likely just go bone because people can be immune to poison. But with hers, you'll have these 3 huge trees dedicated, each tree dedicated to one type of elemental damage, which essentially necessitates that you're not supposed to go all the way into one of those trees. Because if you do, you will run into fire immune characters, or cold immune characters, or lightning immune characters. And you'll be hard pressed to lower those resistances so you can actually damage them. Which is really one of those areas where Diablo 2 shows its age in a lot of ways. Because that might have been cool. It's like, oh, it's a fire elemental. Of course it doesn't take any fire damage. But you have a class that has to specialize. Because it's an action RPG. They're encouraged to specialize. So now you have this character who is a pyromancer, or a cryomancer, or an electromancer. I don't know if electromancer is the right one. Is the right term. But it's an action RPG, they added synergies, so of course you're going to go hard on fire magic, or hard on cold magic, or hard on lightning magic. And you're encouraged to just put everything into that. So then, let's say you're a pyromancer and you run into a fire immune enemy. Well, you are literally incapable of damaging them. Congratulations. So, the concept of the Sorceress is actually kind of cool, because it's like, if the game was designed around it, you could... This is actually what happened in Diablo 3, which is why Diablo 3 and Diablo 4 are the way they are. But you could run into this fire immune enemy, go, oh, no problem, run away, swap out just your spells to cold, come back, and kill it. Right? So just imagine if you were playing Diablo 2 and you had infinite free respects instead of like 1 per difficulty, which is stupid. So you're playing a fire sorceress, you run into an enemy that is immune to fire, you respec to cold, you come back, you kill the cold immune, the fire immune enemy, and then maybe you respec back to fire, right? You use the ability that works. So I understand what they were going for, it's just it was very poorly executed in single player. That's the important thing. In single player, it is poorly executed. In multiplayer, it's just fine because that kind of encourages you to like use different characters. So you might run a group that's just 3 sorceresses, and each sorceress is dedicated to a different elemental type, and the 3 of you will just go around and slaughter everything. But yeah, ideally it would be like 3 sorceresses and then 2 necromancers. One's an army necromancer, the other one is a poison or bone necromancer. Maybe you have 3 sorceresses and 3 necromancers. One of them is a poison necro, one of them is a bone necro, one of them is an army necro, and so nothing can touch you. Then you have the druid, and the druid is kind of in a weird place, because the druid in D2 isn't particularly good. So he kind of has elements of the paladin and the necromancer and the sorceress. So the druid is kind of these 3 characters combined, but is crappier at each of their roles. So he has an elemental damage tree where he can do various nature-themed spells. These are not as refined or really as good as the sorceress's versions of those things, because the sorceress can just put that damage right where she needs it, whereas the druid can't. It's kind of a little random as to where the damage will go. He has shapeshifting, which is where he becomes like the paladin's combat tree. And so now he can turn into a bear and, you know, do sort of like, I guess, barbarian-esque attacks. He can turn into a werewolf and do paladin-esque attacks, like being able to swipe a bunch of times and lifesteal and all those stuff. He has the minion tree, where, or whatever it's called, where he can summon minions, except, oddly enough, except his minions are all mutually exclusive, so you can't have wolves, dire wolves, and bears. You can have ravens, but they don't really do much in terms of damage. He has creepers, which destroy corpses to give you some bonus, and he has a spirit, which is like a persistent aura. So again, like the paladin. And the creepers, they destroy corpses, so they're kind of like the necromancer. But he's kind of just a hodgepodge of almost everything, but it doesn't really work as well. Now, if he could have the bear and the dire wolves and the normal wolves, he would have sort of like a super golem, which is why they didn't do it this way, but he'd have a super golem, he'd have super high health dire wolves, and then he'd have a lot of, say, wolves that have some sort of, I don't think the normal wolves, the spirit wolves, actually do anything. Maybe they do magic damage or something. But the druid's just kind of all over the place. But again, here's something very, very important. This is an action RPG. Which means you are supposed to heavily specialize into things. Let me put this in perspective. If you heavily specialize into bone, your bone spirits will be hitting for like 2,000 damage by the time you're level 30. Like 1,000, 2,000 damage at level 30. Which means you can just run away from Diablo and Diablo's going to die really, really fast. Nothing's really immune to magic damage, I don't think. Maybe some stuff is. But what this also means is now most things can't do anything about you when you run into hordes of enemies. You use Bone Spear. You can use Teeth, I guess. It's not very good, if I remember correctly. Maybe it's a good, like, crowd clearer. But maybe, I don't know. Just depends on how the synergies work. Bone Spirit pretty much always hits because it tracks enemies down, and enemies don't run away all that well. You can do Poison Nova, which does outrageous amounts of damage. You can do Poison Corpse Explosion, which basically doesn't do like corpse explosion damage, but it does outrageous amounts of poison damage. You can give yourself bone armor so you can defend yourself. You do all kinds of things. Create walls, prisons for enemies. But the thing is, you have to specialize to get that. So that means you put all your points in bone teeth, and in teeth, and then all your points in bone spear, and then all your points in bone spirit. Like that's 60 levels worth of points. So you won't max out all 3 of those. So you won't even max out one of them. You might max it. Yeah, if you're splitting them, you won't max out all of them. So, but yeah, that's just by level 50 with at least one of the with part of the way through Nightmare, you might max out all 3 of those. By level 50, level 55, however many extra skill points you get. But that's 3 skills. Now they're maxed. Now they do max damage. Now you're just looking for stuff to increase those. And then they just do outrageous amounts of damage. But at that point, you're looking at doing like 4,000 damage with a Bone Spirit. That sounds like a lot, and then you get to Hell difficulty and you realize that's nothing. But anyway, the Druid having all these different types of playstyles that are all sort of like the bastardized forms of other people's playstyles kind of hurts it in a lot of ways. Like, yeah, sure, the werewolf has lifesteal with its like 3-hit combo, its 3-slap combo, and the bear has cleave and stun, but you have to go into that form and then you can do it. In Diablo 4's open beta, like if you press an ability that says, let's say, needs werewolf form, he just goes into werewolf form while doing the attack, and then bear form does the other attack, and they're more like bifurcated in what they do. So yeah, I mean they're fine because you have to specialize. The versatility of the Druid is kind of wasted, but you could take advantage of it. Remember, the most impactful thing of almost all of these abilities is level 1. So, like, our amplified damage was crucial to us getting through this difficulty relatively quickly and killing bosses relatively quickly, and it was only at level 1. Corpse Explosion kills enemies constantly and really easily. It was level 1. So you can make the argument that even just one level in each of those abilities is incredibly useful unless it's intended to do damage, at which point it's absolute hot garbage. But even if you're playing as a druid, if you're playing, say, a melee type druid who's, you know, a cross between the paladin and the barbarian, well, if you have Hurricane, that still deals cold damage to enemies, so it slows them down. If you have an Oak Spirit out or whatever, that's still going to give you extra life, I think. If you have a Creeper and it eats one of the corpses and gives you a damage bonus, that's still a damage bonus. So, you know, there's little things, but in games like this, you're going to heavily specialize into one thing. And that one thing will be incredible at the end. But yeah, if for some reason you haven't played Diablo 2 before, what I would recommend is, if you like my playstyle, just check out the Necromancer. You can pretty much just emulate exactly what I did, and you'll do fine. You don't need to find a lot of items that give you a lot of bonuses to your skills to make that viable. Your skeletons will have slightly less health, they'll have slightly less attack and defense, they'll do slightly less damage. It won't be a big deal. If you want something a little bit more advanced, but you still want to be a caster, play as either a Bone Necro, which I think would actually probably be harder, because you have less, like, crowd clear spells. I would recommend Army Necro is probably the easiest, if you're doing it correctly. After that would probably be Sorceress, if you're good at staying away from enemies. If you want to just run in and beat things to death, I'd probably recommend Paladin. His 3-hit combo attack can be completely devastating to enemies. Also, a lot of ways to build him. It just depends. If you want to do like if you want to do his spells, then you have to pump energy and find a lot of mana increasing items. But it just is what it is. Just get a lot of strength and a lot of dex, because he's sort of dedicated to using a shield. You want him to have the shield so he can block attacks, and so he can also, do his 3-hit combo with his sword. He's sort of built around that. Whereas the druid is built around going into werewolf form, but using a maul, so you get a lot of extra damage per hit. I'd probably avoid the martial arts assassin, but you could go with, say, a trap assassin. He's got a little secret. And you could also go with an Amazon. They tend to work pretty well as well. The Boazon, so using the bow tree, has a special type of attack which can't miss. I think it's like homing arrow or something. There's the javelin. So the Jabazon, I think is what she's called, or Javelon. That's where she uses javelins, and those are really, really high damage. So that can work out really well as well. Depends on if you want survivability versus, do you want high burst damage or do you want reliable damage? Or you can also play the Amazon as a sort of a tank. Essentially, you just use a spear now and just stab people to death while using all of her dodge and evasion abilities. So whenever an enemy tries to attack her, she has abilities that let her just dodge. So she'll be fighting and then she'll dodge, and then she'll be fighting and fighting, dodge. So if all that works, then you don't need to pump vitality as much. More focus on dexterity and strength. The Barbarian is probably, paradoxically, one of the easier and harder classes to play. So if you play it correctly, and you build your build in a way that actually synergizes with itself, then you could kill enemies pretty quickly and easily. I'll give you an example. So he's easy in that he has like leaps that lets him get in and out of combat very easily. He also has Whirlwind, which lets him just attack really, really fast and just pump out absolutely ridiculous amounts of damage to crowds of enemies. The only problem is he doesn't have immunity while he's jumping. So like literally there would be people who would jump through a crowd of enemies and then you'd hear him die like midway through the jump. He'd hit the ground and oh. It was always really dumb and hilarious. But anyway, also a Whirlwind. He doesn't have immunity from Whirlwind. So yeah, you'd see players that just got Whirlwind and like, oh right, and they Whirlwind through a group of enemies. You hear them die and they just like die. The Barbarian is definitely one of those classes where you need high strength to wear the heaviest armor you can get, high vitalities to survive getting hit all the time, and then decent dex so that you can actually hit enemies. But then you also need some mana, usually from items. You need mana increasing items so that you can use your abilities. Or mana leech. Leech X amount of mana per hit. So it can all work. The hardest class is probably the Druid overall. But again, and all of these classes will be pretty easy if you focus on something. But yeah, if you haven't played Diablo 2 before, check it out. It's good. This is just me screwing around looking at skill trees. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. This is the end of Diablo 2. We might come back and do Nightmare or Hell difficulty, but I don't want to play on an 800 by 600 screen just to be able to play on Battle.net. So probably not. Alright guys, my name has been Muir. This has been Diablo 2, Lord of Destruction, and I will catch you guys later on something else. Probably Diablo 3, but we'll see. Maybe Path of Exile, who knows. Bye everyone.